Hello, my name is Ava Monroe, and if you're hearing this, it means I finally made it out. I wasn't born strong. I became strong. The kind of strong you earn through bruises you can't show and nights you can't talk about. The kind of strength that comes from surviving people who smile while they ruin you. I used to dance in a bar off the interstate, the kind of place that smelled like old beer and cheap perfume, where the music was loud enough to drown out regret. Back then, I told myself I was just passing through, just making money for a few months. But months became years, and soon the bar started feeling like quicksand. The more I moved, the deeper I sank. The manager, Vince, liked to call us his girls. He said it like we were trophies on his shelf. Every night, before opening, he'd walk through the dressing room, tapping his ring against the mirrors as he passed. Click, click, click. It was his way of saying, I own you. And the worst part? We believed him. He'd tell me, you've got that look, Ava, that desperate kind of pretty. It sounded like a compliment the first time. Then, it started to sound like a threat. You learn fast in places like that. You learn who to smile at, who to ignore, and who not to turn your back on. You learn that freedom has a price, and that sometimes the price is your silence. There was one night, though, that changed everything. It was late, almost 3 amperes. The crowd was thin, the music half dead. I was wiping down the counter when I heard shouting from the back office. Vince's voice. Then something slammed, hard. A girl came out crying, mascara running down her cheeks. Her name was Ruby. She was new, maybe 19. She said she wanted to quit, said she couldn't take it anymore. And Vince, he laughed, told her she could leave any time, but her tab had to be cleared first. That's what he called it, a tab. The money he claimed we owed him for rent, costumes, and safety. A fake debt that kept us locked in his world. That night, Ruby didn't go home. The next morning, her locker was empty. Vince told us she ran off with a trucker, but I remember the way she looked at me before she disappeared. That silent, begging look. Do something. And I didn't. That's what broke me. I started saving. Every dollar, every tip, every hidden wad of cash I could sneak out of that place. I stopped buying new heels, stopped eating out, and slept in a shared apartment with 3 other girls, just to scrape together enough to get out. Vince thought he owned my future. He didn't realize I was already building it behind his back. There were close calls. Once, he caught me counting money in the dressing room and asked where it came from. I lied, said it was from a boyfriend. He smiled, told me to thank him for supporting the business. That night, I slept with my bag under the bed and one shoe by the door, ready to run if I had to. Then came the night of the storm. Power went out around midnight. Lightning kept flashing through the windows, white and fast. Vince was drunk, pacing the floor, yelling about lost profits. I was cleaning the stage when he grabbed my wrist, hard enough to leave a mark. Said I was stealing from him. Said he'd make an example out of me. I don't know what happened next. Maybe adrenaline took over. Maybe I just snapped. I pushed him, and he slipped, hit his head on the edge of the bar. He wasn't dead, but he was bleeding and unconscious. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. No one would protect me. No one ever had. So I walked out, into the storm, into freedom. I didn't take much, just a bag, my cash, and one photo of Ruby that I found in her old locker. She was smiling, holding a sparkler. That picture became my promise. Months later, I was working double shifts at a diner in another city, saving again. The tips weren't much, but I was clean. No one called me Vince's girl. No one owned me. I thought that was enough, but it wasn't. Because every time I saw a woman come in with tired eyes and bruises she tried to hide, I remembered. I remembered Ruby, the others. The way we were all trapped was because we had nowhere safe to go. That's when the idea hit me. A bar, but not that kind of bar. A place owned by women, run by women, where no one gets touched without permission, where the money goes straight into their hands where no man can ever hold their safety hostage again. I called it. It started small, a single dusty storefront with flickering lights and second-hand furniture. But it was mine. The first night we opened, I stood behind the counter watching the stage lights shimmer across the walls, and for a second, I felt like I could breathe again. But freedom comes with ghosts. Every clink of a glass, every shadow that lingered too long outside the window, reminded me that the past doesn't die just because you escaped it. Sometimes I'd wake up in the back office of Haven, heart racing, sure I'd hear that click, click, click again. But it was just the ice machine, or the wind, or maybe my mind, still trapped in that old room. Still, I kept building. I hired girls who needed a second chance. Some came from shelters, some from clubs like the one I ran from. I told them one thing: you work here, you're safe here. And I meant it, even if it meant sleeping in the bar some nights, bat in hand, waiting for the world to test me again, because it always does. And I know one day, Vince, or someone like him, will walk through those doors. He'll look around and see what I built from the ground up. He'll smirk, maybe laugh, and say something like, "So, this is what you did with my money?" But what he'll never understand is, he didn't build this. I did. And every brick in Haven, every dollar in the register, every woman who walks out with her head high is proof that he lost. I'm not telling this story because I want pity. I'm telling it because there's a girl out there right now, wiping down a counter in a bar just like that one, thinking she can't leave. You can. It'll cost you everything you have, and you'll still pay more. But the moment you walk out, that first breath of cold air, you'll know what freedom tastes like. It tastes like blood and rain, and it's worth every drop. It's been 2 years since I left that life behind. 2 years since I built Haven, and for the first time in forever, I almost believed I was safe. When the lights come on at dusk, Haven doesn't just glow, it breathes. Gold light spilling onto cracked sidewalks, music that hums low like a heartbeat, laughter that doesn't sound forced. If you drive past it, it looks like any other neighborhood bar. But if you walk inside, you'll feel it, the difference. No hands wandering, no leering stares, no fear. Just women owning the space they built. The girls call me boss, but I never wanted that title. I'm not their boss. I'm their proof that you can crawl out of hell and still build something beautiful. Some nights, I sit at the corner booth after closing, feet up on the seat, cigarette burning low, watching them count tips and tease each other. I pretend the world outside those glass doors doesn't exist. But lately, something feels off. It started with a drink, a whiskey sour, half finished. Same stool, same time, every night. At first, I thought nothing of it. We get regulars, truckers, night shift nurses, lonely souls looking for warmth. But whoever this was, they never stayed long enough to finish their drink. And then the notes began. Folded slips of paper were left under the coaster. At first, harmless, compliments. Love what you're building. Then kid or owness. You can't hide forever. The girls laughed when I showed them, said it was some drunk playing games, but I recognized the handwriting. Even now, I can see it. That crooked tilt, that heavy pressure on the pen, like anger carved into every letter. Vince used to write his employees' names on envelopes like that, back when we were all just property. I tried to tell myself it couldn't be him. It's impossible. I moved states, changed names, paid for silence. But fear doesn't care about logic. Once it finds you, it crawls under your skin and waits. The next night, I installed cameras, just cheap ones, motion sensors above the door, one by the bar. But the footage never showed anything unusual, just shadows, always too late, too far, too unclear. Still, the notes kept coming. You built this from my money. You owe me. You forgot Ruby, but I didn't. That last one made me stop breathing. Ruby? I hadn't said her name aloud in years. How would anyone know about her? That's when I realized something terrible. Whoever was watching me wasn't guessing. They knew. That night, I stayed after closing, alone, locked the doors, turned off the lights, sat in silence. I told myself I'd wait, catch whoever was leaving those notes. At 2:37 a.m., the front door creaked. No footsteps, just the faint smell of smoke and rain. I gripped the bat. I kept behind the counter, slow breaths, every nerve awake. Then the motion light flickered, and for one split second, I saw it, a silhouette, tall, broad shoulders, the kind that fills a doorway. I stepped forward, but the shadow slipped away, fast, silent. By the time I reached the door, only tire tracks remained in the mud outside. I called the police the next morning. They said there wasn't much they could do, probably a prank. They offered to send patrols around at night, but the way the officer looked at me, the doubt in his eyes, told me he didn't believe a word. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. The girls started noticing. My hands are shaking while pouring drinks, and I glanced toward the door. One of them, Lena, asked if I was okay. I told her the truth. She didn't laugh. She just nodded, said, "We got you, Ava." And that's when something shifted. It wasn't just me anymore. Haven wasn't just my refuge. It was ours. The women I hired started staying late, checking the locks, watching the cameras. Every time someone new walked in, one of them would subtly move closer to the bar, like instinct. We became a quiet, protective pack. But fear has a way of finding cracks. One evening, I found a letter slipped under the back door. Inside, a photo. Me, outside the old club, the one I ran from. And behind me in the photo, Ruby. Except Ruby shouldn't be there, because Ruby was gone. The note said only 3 words. She's still mine. I stared at that photo for hours, the sound of the fridge humming the only thing keeping me grounded. The girls begged me to call the cops again. But what would I say? A ghost from my past is haunting my bar? No, this wasn't about law. This was about control. Someone wanted to remind me that freedom is fragile, that the past always collects its debt. So I started carrying the bat again, started locking up earlier, started sleeping in the office with one eye open. And somewhere between exhaustion and paranoia, a realization hit me. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be afraid. Maybe I was supposed to remember. Because the only thing worse than running from your past is letting it dictate your present. So here's what I did. I stopped waiting. I started hunting. I watched the security footage frame by frame every night for weeks. Until one morning, 4:12 a.m., I froze the screen. There he was, a face reflected in the glass. Not Vince, someone else, someone younger, but with the same eyes. And suddenly, it all made sense. He wasn't after my bar. He wasn't after me. He was after what I represented, the one who got away, the woman who built freedom and turned it into a business, the kind of woman his father destroyed. That was the night I stopped hiding, the night Haven stopped being just a bar and became a fortress. Because if my past wanted a fight, it picked the wrong woman to follow home. Have you ever felt the past breathing down your neck? It doesn't knock. It doesn't announce itself. It just starts showing up in the corners of photos, in faces that look too familiar, in words you never wanted to hear again. That's what it felt like, a slow invasion. After I saw that face in the footage, the man who looked like Vince, I couldn't shake it. Same jawline, same grin, but younger. And then it hit me. Vince had a son. I remembered the photo on his desk. A boy in a baseball uniform, maybe 10, holding a bat, bigger than him. I remember Vince bragging, "Kid's gonna be tougher than me one day." Turns out, he was right, because now that kid was grown, and he'd found me. His name was Mason, and from the moment he walked through Haven's door, I knew he wasn't there for the drinks. He looked at me like someone studying a crime scene, calm, detached, dangerous, in silence. He ordered a whiskey sour, sat at the same stool, and smiled. That smile, the same one his father wore, right before he hurt people. He said, "He used to talk about you, you know." My throat went dry. "Who?" He didn't answer, just stirred his drink and said, "He said you were his favorite dancer." The music seemed to vanish. The laughter, the chatter, gone. Just his voice, cutting through it all like a blade. I wanted to tell him to get out, but my girls were watching. And in Haven, no one shows fear, not even me. So I smiled back. "That was a long time ago." He nodded. "Yeah, for you." He left after that. Didn't even finish his drink. But when I went to clean his stool later, there it was, another envelope. Inside, a single photo. Vince, lying in a hospital bed, tubes, bandages, alive, and scrawled on the back, in that same heavy ink, "He remembers you too." For days, I pretended it didn't shake me. I poured drinks, ran payroll, and trained new hires, like nothing happened. But inside, my pulse never stopped racing. Vince was supposed to be gone. I left him bleeding, not breathing. So how the hell was he still alive? I tried to dig, called hospitals under fake names. Nothing, no records, no trace. But Mason kept coming back, always calm, always polite, never threatening, not openly, but his words, they landed like traps. "You built something good here," he said one night. "My father built people. You build walls." I told him Haven wasn't a wall. It was safety. He smirked. "Safety's just a prettier word for control." The way he said it, it sounded like something Vince would have said. That's when I realized what Mason wanted. Not money, not revenge. He wanted to finish his father's work, to make me break. And the worst part? It was working. The notes turned to messages. The photos turned into threats. A dead bird on the doorstep. A shattered mirror in the dressing room. He was dismantling my sanctuary, piece by piece, reminding me that no matter how far you run, you're still his. The girls started noticing the cracks. Lena asked if we should close the bar for a few nights. I told her no, because that's what predators want, for you to retreat. So I did the opposite. We threw an event that weekend, a women's night fundraiser, live music, cameras, crowds. If Mason wanted to watch, he'd have to do it in the open. But halfway through the night, something happened. A power cut, total darkness, screams. Then a single spotlight flickered on, aimed at the stage, and taped to the microphone. Another photo, and Ruby, except this one. This one wasn't from the past. It was from last week. Ruby, alive. I couldn't breathe. The room spun, lights flickered back on, and the crowd clapped nervously, thinking it was part of the show. But I knew better. Someone was telling me the story wasn't over. After the event, I went back to the office, locked the door, and stared at that photo for hours. Ruby looked older, different, but it was her, standing near a neon sign that said, Paradise Room, a club 2 cities over. I drove there the next night, alone. The outside looked the same as the place I ran from. Same neon pink, same broken windows, same smell of cigarettes, and stale desperation. And when I walked in, my heart stopped. Behind the bar, serving drinks, was Ruby, alive, breathing. And when she saw me, she froze too. We just stood there, time suspended. Then she whispered, "Ava?" I asked her how she got here. She said Vince found her. Said he saved her after she ran, that he took care of her, that Mason runs things now. That's when I knew this wasn't about me escaping. This was about him rebuilding, using Ruby the same way he used me. He used women to keep his power alive through his son. I asked her to leave with me. She hesitated, looked toward the back room. Then she whispered, "He's watching." I turned, and there he was, Mason, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, smiling. "You should have stayed gone," he said. His voice was calm, smooth, the kind that doesn't need to shout to scare you. "You had your freedom." "Why come back?" I said. "Because you don't get to do this again." He stepped closer. "You think Haven's different? You're just running the same show with softer rules." He leaned in. "People like you and my father, you feed off broken girls. You just sell hope instead of pain." That hit deeper than I wanted it to, because a small part of me, the guilty part, wondered if he was right. Before I could speak, Ruby whispered, "Ava, go." Her voice cracked, and I realized she wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid for me. I backed away, heart pounding, eyes locked on Mason. He didn't follow. He just watched, like he already knew how this story ends. Back at Haven, I poured myself a drink, hands shaking. The lights felt too bright, the air too still, and for the first time since I built this place, I asked myself, was I protecting them or just hiding behind them? The past isn't chasing me anymore. It's here, drinking at my bar, smiling in my mirror, breathing my air, and if it wants me to fall, it's going to have to burn Haven to the ground to do it. You can tell when fear starts living in a building. It seeps into the walls. It hums through the pipes. It changes the way people breathe. That's what Haven felt like. After Mason came back, like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. The girls still laughed, still danced, still played music, but underneath it, I could hear the quiet dread every time the back door creaked, every time headlights passed the windows. Someone flinched. Lena started carrying a pocket knife. Sierra, the newest hire, quit after a week, and the regulars, they could feel it too. The bar wasn't fun anymore. It was electric, with unease. I didn't blame them, because I knew we weren't just being watched anymore. We were being hunted. It started small, locks tampered with, power flickering, notes left in places only staff could reach. The cops came once, did their little check, and left with the same polite smile. No evidence, no suspects, no help. So we decided to handle it ourselves. The first meeting happened after closing. Lights off, blinds shut. Everyone gathered around the bar like it was a war room. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and adrenaline. "We're not waiting for anyone to save us," I told them. "If someone wants to bring the fight here, we make sure they regret it." Lena grinned. "About damn time." That night, we planned. Every entrance was mapped. Every deadbolt is double-checked. We installed hidden motion sensors, set up a silent alarm that rang only on my phone, and connected every camera feed to a monitor in my office. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was preparation. The girls volunteered for shifts. 2 stayed until dawn every night, 1 on the floor, 1 watching the cameras. We called it the Shadow Watch, and maybe it was adrenaline, or maybe just sisterhood. But for the first time in weeks, I saw something return to their faces. Not fear, not fragility, control. Then came the night it all broke open. A storm was brewing, rain hammering the roof, thunder rolling low like a warning drum. The bar was half full, mostly locals. Music loud enough to hide the tension. Then the power cut. Total darkness. For 2 seconds, silence. Then crash. A window shattering in the back. Someone screamed. "Lock the doors," I yelled. Emergency lights flickered on. A weak red glow, shadows stretching across the room. I grabbed the bat from behind the counter, heart pounding so hard it felt like gunfire in my chest. "Everyone, stay low." Lena was already moving, flashlight in one hand, knife in the other. We swept through the back hall, the sound of the rain like static over our nerves. In the alley behind Haven, the window glass crunched under my boots, and there it was, a trail of muddy footprints, leading away, but something else, taped to the dumpster, flapping in the wind. A photo, me again, but this time taken inside Haven. The angle over the bar from the office. Someone had been in here. We raced back inside. The girls gathered in the center of the floor, shaking, whispering. "It's not safe here," Sierra said. "He's already inside." I looked at them, every terrified face, every trembling hand. Then I said it, slow, steady, like I was convincing myself to. "This is our place. And no one, not him, not anyone, takes it from us." Lena nodded. "Then we fight." We locked the doors, turned off every light, waited. Midnight came. The storm still raged. The only sound was the hum of the backup generator and our breathing. Then, a noise, soft, deliberate, from the basement. The girls looked at me. I nodded. We moved as one. Flashlights off, boots quiet. Every sense is burning alive. The basement door was cracked open. A faint light flickered below. I pushed it open slowly, the hinges whining like they knew the ending. Downstairs, the air was damp, cold, boxes stacked, shelves lined with liquor, and in the middle of it all, a camera, still recording. On the floor beside it, another note. "You turned my father's cage into your throne." My pulse spiked. Footsteps above us. Faint, fast. "He's upstairs," Lena whispered. We ran, burst through the door, just in time to see a figure dart across the bar, heading for the exit. Black hoodie, boots splashing through broken glass. "Stop!" I shouted, sprinting after him. He turned once. Flashlight beam caught his face for a split second. "Mason," he smiled, then vanished into the storm. After that night, we stopped pretending Haven was just a bar. It became something else. A bunker, a trap, a line we swore no one would cross. We started keeping the batons behind the counter, pepper spray in every drawer. Every night, the Shadow Watch kept its eyes on the monitors. But paranoia has a price. We stopped sleeping, stopped trusting new customers. Every sound became a threat. Every silence felt staged. We were surviving, not living, and deep down, I knew Mason wanted exactly that. He didn't need to break in. He just needed to make us live like prisoners in our own home. But what he didn't know was that we'd already set the trap. It happened 3 nights later. Another storm, another blackout, except this time we were ready. Lena pretended to close early. Lights off, doors locked, but we stayed, hidden, waiting. 2:14 a.m. A faint click. The back lock is turning. A figure slipped inside. Flashlight, sweeping the floor. He moved quietly, confident, like he'd done this before. He stepped toward the office, where the camera used to be. That's when Lena hit the switch. Every light in Haven flared on at once, and there he was, frozen in the middle of the floor. Mason. 6 women stepped out of the shadows, surrounding him. No one screamed. No one moved fast. Just silence, heavy and electric. I stepped forward, bat in hand. He laughed. "You think this changes anything?" I said. "Yeah. Now you're on our stage." He lunged first, but Lena was faster. She hit him across the arm, the crack echoing like thunder. He stumbled. I swung, Wut, met bone, fell, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. By the time the cops arrived, Mason was bleeding, but breathing. They said he'd broken in, that we were lucky, but luck had nothing to do with it. We built this place to be safe, and when the world tried to break in again, we made sure it met every ounce of the fire that built us. That night, after they took him away, I stood behind the bar. Rain is still falling outside. The girls were sitting around, quiet, exhausted, but smiling. I looked at the stage, the lights flickering weakly, music still faint in the background, and I realized something. We weren't just survivors anymore. We were defenders. Haven wasn't just a bar now. It was a warning. I used to think the fight was over when we caught Mason. I was wrong, because some battles don't end with cuffs or sirens. Some battles end in fire. It was a quiet Tuesday. Storm clouds had cleared, leaving a humid, thick air that made every sound feel sharper. I was at the bar, counting tips, Lena polishing glasses, the others cleaning tables, when I smelled it. Smoke. At first, I thought it was the kitchen, but then it hit my nose, acrid, chemical. I looked toward the back door and froze. Flames are licking the edges of the storage room. Fire? I screamed. The girls scattered, grabbing extinguishers, dragging buckets of water, but the fire spread fast, faster than we could control. The entire storage wall was engulfed in minutes, black smoke curling toward the ceiling, like fingers trying to claw their way into our sanctuary. And then I saw him, Mason. He wasn't hiding this time. He was standing outside, torch in hand, watching us burn. No sneaky stalking, no notes, just cold, calculated destruction. "Didn't think you'd rebuild so fast," he yelled. "Didn't think you'd survive me." I froze, but only for a second. Then something inside me snapped. Haven wasn't just a bar. It wasn't just my escape. It wasn't just my money, my dream, my life. It was every girl who ever walked through that door, every woman who needed a safe place, every girl I swore I'd protect. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, and with Lena at my side, we fought like animals cornered. Smoke burned our lungs. Flames hissed. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The other girls helped, but Mason wasn't interested in subtlety. He wanted us to burn. I felt the heat on my face, sweat mixing with soot, and I realized this wasn't just a fire. It was a message, a final attempt to break me. But he underestimated one thing: the people I built Haven with. They weren't terrified. They were furious. Sierra grabbed a hose from the back, dousing the flames at their base. Lena swung a heavy stool, cutting the air near Mason to distract him. I moved closer, heart hammering, mind racing. "You think you can destroy us?" I shouted, voice raw with anger. He smirked. I swung the extinguisher, catching him across the chest. He staggered, and in that moment, I felt it. Not fear, not panic, power. All the years of running, hiding, surviving, every scar, every sleepless night, every broken piece of me converged into that instant. I pushed him back, another swing, then Lena and Sierra jumped in. Together, we forced him toward the exit. He looked at me, eyes wide for the first time. "Don't think this is over," he hissed, but we didn't answer. We watched him run into the night as the firemen arrived. By sunrise, Haven was half destroyed. Smoke curled from the roof, blackened beams sagged, water pooled everywhere. But we survived. I stood outside, coughing, hair plastered to my face, and looked at the rubble. And for the first time in years, I let myself cry, because what we lost wasn't just property. It was the symbol of our hard work, our safety, and our triumph over the past. And yet, I smiled, because fire doesn't just destroy. Fire purifie. It burns away the fear, the doubt, the chains. We would rebuild. The weeks that followed were a blur. Insurance, loans, construction permits, everything was exhausting. But the community we had built in those 2 years rallied around us. Donors, former patrons, women who had walked through Haven seeking refuge. They showed up with supplies, advice, and hands ready to work. We didn't just rebuild a bar. We rebuilt a fortress, one that no one could intimidate. Stronger walls, better security, emergency exits, self-defense training, and most importantly, the girls' voices were louder than ever. Ruby came back, too. She helped, standing beside me like she once feared she could never do. Now she wasn't a victim. She was a defender. When Haven finally reopened, it wasn't just neon lights and music. It was a beacon, a warning, a statement. If anyone tried to take from us again, they'd find more than a bar. They'd find sisters, standing shoulder to shoulder. They'd find a woman who refused to be a victim ever again. They'd find me, and for the first time, I let myself breathe fully. Haven became more than a bar after that. It became a movement, workshops for women in the neighborhood, self-defense training, a safe space where stories were told, scars were acknowledged, and strength was shared. And every night, as I stand behind the counter, I see the girls I hired, not afraid, not broken. They laugh, they dance, they live. And I remember the girl I once was, hiding behind shadows, trying to survive. She would never recognize this place, because this haven isn't for survival anymore. It's for living, for thriving, for rising from the ashes. I built this, we built this, and no one can take it from us, because the fire burned. Yes, but we, the Sisters of Haven, became the phoenix, and we will rise, every single time. It's been a year since Haven reopened. The scars are still there, the charred beams, the faded walls, the memory of Mason standing in the doorway. But scars don't weaken us. They remind us of what we survived. Every night, I watch the girls laughing on stage, sharing stories, counting tips, holding each other up when the weight of the world presses in. Ruby smiles beside me now, confident, strong, no longer someone to protect, but someone who protects herself. Sometimes, I think about the little girl I once was, running from shadows, terrified of every footstep behind me. I wouldn't recognize her, not anymore. Haven isn't just a bar. It's a promise, a safe place, a symbol of what happens when women take control of their own lives and refuse to let fear define them. And as I lock the doors at the end of every night, I whisper to myself, and to anyone who ever doubted, we survived, we built, we rise, and we will keep rising.